Okay, so what I want to do here is try to make a plate for my laser burner. And I've tried a couple different things. So I've tried these inexpensive little grills inserts for, I guess they're for cookie sheets, I would guess. And I've also made this setup, which I play. My particular cabinet has a recess that this sits in, and that works pretty good. And most of the stuff I'm burning is out of the 3mm birch ply. So if you've ever tried this, the problem is 9 times out of 10 there's got like a wave to the birch. So I made this because this way I can use some neodymium magnets and set them on there, and it can flatten out that workpiece. And that's worked out pretty good. In fact, I've had pretty good success. And I know you can buy like the honeycomb, the extruded honeycomb style, which I think are good. They're a little pricey, but one thing that I don't like about them is all the ones I've seen, they're all aluminum. Well, with that plywood being so wavy and bendy, just no matter what, for the most part, I mean, you can get some nice straight ones, but I have a hard time laying them flat so I can get a good burn, with just a single pass or a couple of passes. So those aluminum ones, being all aluminum, I can't really use the magnets, so they're not really going to work out good for me. Now that big metal insert one I have works good, but I know I've seen some people use nails and some various other things. But being as a maker, like most of you probably are, I thought about using these. So what we have here is just some stamped gusset plates, or I think they call them mending plates too. I always call them gusset plates, but they're mending plates. Get them at your Home Depot or your box stores or anything like that. But essentially what they are is a piece of galvanized steel, and then they get punched through so you get these barbs on them. And what they use them for typically is when you put a 2x4 or any kind of like girder or any kind of pine or any kind of lumber that you want to join together. They use them a lot on floor trusses and roof trusses. And essentially you put one on one side, one, then you pound it in, and it's like a bunch of little nails holding it. But the nice thing is the depth of the rise of each one of these nails is uniform. So I thought, well, this is another one of my inserts that I typically use. And my laser does 300mm squared, so it's, we'll say 12 inches. And so what I thought about, I got enough of these, and these are fairly inexpensive. Each one of these plates is under $1 or about $2, I would say, depending on where you get them from. Some places you get a pack of 10 for $10-12. Some places you gotta pay $2 a piece for them. But what I was thinking about trying is I was gonna go ahead and give this a whirl. I was gonna lay these out and screw them down so that they're flat, because this MDF, although I'm not a big fan of MDF, and I do a lot of woodworking, so it's not, but it's flat. It's dead flat. As long as it hasn't never gotten wet, it's usually pretty flat. Or if it's been sitting flat for a while, it usually stays pretty flat. So what I want to do is I want to accomplish two things. I want to be able to use these magnets to some extent, and also I want to get a uniform height off the bed, and I want them all fairly flat. So it's pretty simple. I hadn't run across anybody using these gusset plates for their laser beds, but I thought maybe we would give it a try, and somebody could basically make a nice perforated laser bed for fairly inexpensive. And the nice thing is they come in different sizes too, so a lot of them you can get sheets as big as a foot by a foot, or you can get, this is like the most common one, which would be I think these are probably 3.5 by 6, which would be like a 2x4 version. So they make different sizes. I think you can get them down as far as an inch. And I picked ones that would end up being about 12 inches altogether and had a lot of perfs. So I was kind of thinking that these ones would work the best. So I'm going to put this together. I don't know if you want to stay watching it, but I'm going to put this together, and then I'll get a little footage of it cutting, and we'll see what happens. So not much to it. I just picked up some Phillips pan heads. These are number 6s, just because the heads are big enough to fit. The heads will be big enough to fit in these slots, and they're a 1/2 inch, and this is a 1/2 inch piece of wood. So pan head, I would recommend pan heads because they're flat on the bottom side as opposed to standard wood screws, which have the bevel, the taper. So we're just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna place them on here. I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna put them on here, but I think we'll just go ahead and get going on it. It's not really a wrong way because they're gonna be a little bigger than what I'm needing anyway. So I might actually kick them over just a hair, just to make sure I got enough coverage. But nice thing is this grid that I made previously. I do these on all my boards, so this sits in a groove in the laser bed, and I use light burn, so I just have a file and I just pull this up, and it's got all my increments, so it just helps me square things up if I need to. Actually, I think I TIG welded that metal frame on the back side of this, it looks like. Let's see. Yep, I'd say this is what I used to TIG weld this metal frame together at one point. So we'll go ahead and get this started. I think I'm going to lay them. This typically goes in my printer or burner this direction. So what I think I'm going to do is run them going vertical like this. So I'm going to go ahead and get one of these started and see what happens. I'm going to pre-drill this a little bit. I probably don't need to, but if you've ever worked with MDF, you really only get like one chance to make it work before it strips out. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill it just to make that one shot work better. So I'm just going to line up some of these gussets in here just to ensure that I got this nice and square. I think what we'll do is come in one. So we'll see how this works. One of the things you'll probably notice when you're doing this is these gussets have a little arc to them just because of the machining process. I think they kind of come through a roller and they get extruded or punched to make the barbs, and then continue on and get punched. So I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there is a little bit of an arc to it. So the nice thing is if you screw this down, it should take that arc out of there, and then you won't have any high spots. There's a little bit of enough slop in here where you can kind of actually slide these up and down. It's basically a slotted groove for you. So I'm going to get some of these started. Just want to pull a little bit. I'm just really going to take my time on this first one because this is going to be the one that sets the tempo for the rest. So I'm not going to screw them in extremely hard, but I do want to get, and I've never done this before, so this is all experimentation at this point. So I'm thinking if I make like a cross pattern, like a number 5 on a dice, the dot that'll take that crown out of the center and make everything lay nice and flat to the MDF, which I know is dead nut flat. So we'll see. Now these suckers are sharp. In fact, I lost these 2 fingers at one point at a construction site getting floor trusses off a semi-trailer, and my finger was inside of one when it fell, and it basically raked it through. And yeah, anyways, just be careful. So that actually sucked that down quite tight, so I'm not seeing any. So I'm going to put some down. I'm going to work another pile in here. And then I'm going to get some of these outside ones. I don't have my M12s here, but get one on here and see what happens. Yeah, I wouldn't over tighten these because that MDF will strip out pretty fast. So you don't want to be putting screws in and out too much on these. So there we have it. So that's going to be my first one to start laying out the rest. But you can kind of see what we're going to be working with. So, and I know a lot of people have used the screw thing. My problem with the screws is if they get kitty wampus or start leaning or it's kind of counterproductive at that point. I'm trying to get something that's nice and stable and should last a while. I mean, and I would say that these things probably the height on these punched pieces is we'll say 3/16 probably, just a hair shy. Oh no, I'm sorry, 5/16. So just a hair over a quarter. It should work pretty good. And while I got this out, I might as well measure this too, just so you can. Yeah, so these are 6 by 3. Those are the ones you're going to find typically for the 2x4s and 2x6s that size. But these are going to be back. These will be back in the department that is you'll find all the connector plates and things for joist hangers, things like that. There'll usually be a box of these sitting there with all that other good stuff. Kind of the outside decking, things like that. These are typically used for decks and trusses and things like that. Now I'm just being careful with this drill. Once I see it kind of start to bite, I pretty much backing off, because these will essentially make those pre-drilled holes useless if you try to torque them down. They'll just strip right out. So on these top ones, I'm coming out to the corners. So I'm not coming out to this one. I'm coming out to this one right here. Or I would maybe go that one at the furthest in. But I don't want to be way out here, about right there, because that pan head's going to pin that one. And then I am going to the second from the inside. And then there. And that's what that's really taking that and sucking it flat. So I'm just going to keep going with this, and when I get done we'll throw it on this laser and see if it works. Use it. So that's it. That's all of them. Now some people might be worried about the galvanized coating on here, which fair enough. You know, you don't really want to be breathing too much vaporized galvanized coating, but you know, if you have an extractor, smoke extraction, your ventilation system you should be okay. Can't be any worse than some of the polys and polypropylenes and other things we're doing, but you know, just be careful. I don't imagine that a lot of it's going to get evaporated off via the laser. The particular one I'm using this on is a diode laser anyways, so I'm not too concerned about it, but just take note. So let's see if we can focus this a little bit. So there we have it. Pretty gnarly. A little bit bigger than my geometries inside of this by about 3/4 of an inch all the way around, but you can kind of see as well if you go flat, we're pretty flat all the way across, so I think this will work. Okay, so it's actually working quite well. Okay, so we just finished up our first cut of the gusset plate technique here. So now what I did was a few passes just to cut, not enough to make sure I cut, but just a few just so I could see in fact how well this would have worked. So let's see, we got a few chunks. Alright, so as you can see, I did 2 cuts so far on this, and everything is cut completely through. I haven't had any high or low spots, so I'm pretty happy with the fact that it's uniformly flat across this plane. So I'm pretty happy with it. I would say the only drawback is you're just gonna need to be careful with some of the. In my instance, this sits in a little groove that on the bed. So this is when I pick this out. Using it, I think for $15 plus probably a chunk of scrap or wood if you got it. A few bucks for some screws. I'm pretty happy with it, and the magnets do stick to it. It's not a you know, obviously it's not as strong as if it was a solid sheet, but it's got enough to hold down a little bend if you got a little warpage in your materials. I would say probably might be able to get away with a 1/4 inch warp, a piece that's 1/4 inch thick with a warp. You might be able to get the bend out of it with just some magnets. So it is pretty strong. I guess with these particular magnets here I could probably triple them up and get some more pull, but overall I think it's worth it. I think it's definitely worth the trouble to give it a shot and see if you like it. It's so far it's probably the best option I've managed to come up with.